I wanna hear your voice. You should say all of the things you wanna say. You can be her right here today. I wanna hear your voice. Be free and tell your story.
Goddess, you made it. I'm so glad you're here. Welcome to Goddesshood. We're not just a show, we're a collective. We believe that the healing of one contributes to the healing of all. On our show, you will hear stories and tips that will inspire you to live, love, laugh, and exist on freaking purpose. Let's live. I'm Thea, a podcast mentor dedicated to empowering women. At Goddesshood, we focus on helping women find and use their authentic voices through podcasting, fostering a deep connection with themselves and with other women. So today, it is my privilege to introduce Alison Ferrell, the passionate founder of Red Moon, a pioneering women's wellness brand. Her journey began with her own struggles with endometriosis, inspiring her to create innovative, clean solutions for menstrual care. Determined to turn her pain into power, Alison introduced the first organic CBD-infused menstrual pad in the United States, aiming to provide relief and empower women. With the dedication to women's health, Alison leaves Red Moon with a vision to revolutionize period care and build a supportive community for women everywhere. Welcome, Alison.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so honored to be here.
I am honored to have you, and I'm so excited about this topic. Before we get into we're gonna get intense today, but before we get there, we're gonna have everybody get to know you. We're gonna ask rapid fire fun questions for the audience to say like, who is Alison on a fun side? And if you're listening and want a chance to win a gift that helps you unlock more playfulness in your life, complete our questionnaire. It'll be in the show notes to be entered into a drawing. Okay. Answer with your first mind. I always tell people, don't overthink it. This is fun. This is fluid, okay?
Okay.
If you could have one superpower, what would it be?
Oh, that's easy. Time travel.
Ooh, okay.
Yes.
Okay, what would you do with your time travel?
I think I would travel around all the places in the world that I want to see. Because I love adventure. I love traveling. But then maybe travel to some different eras. Maybe see what the future's like, stuff like that. Yeah.
Would you change some things while you're there, or are you going to leave things alone?
Oh my God, see, that's a dangerous topic because, if you change one thing, you've seen the butterfly effect, right?
Yeah.
I don't want to disturb things, but maybe of course, that human intuition is yes, I want to change things about myself and about society. But yeah, I don't know. Everything has a ripple effect. Gotta be careful with those things.
It really does. Okay, so if you were an animal, what kind of animal would you be?
So my nickname when I was in college was Dolphin. So I think it would be a dolphin because I love the water. I could never get out of the water when we'd go to the pool or on spring break and stuff. So I love the water. I'm a water girl at heart.
I love that. Okay, I could totally see it. It's giving cute dolphin energy.
Yeah, jumping around, swimming for fun,
welcoming all the onlookers because I feel like they're really friendly too. Yeah. Okay, so I'm excited. Our question for today's episode is not a question; it's a statement. Period. The end. So today, as you guessed it, from Alison's bio, we're talking about the menstrual cycle. We're going to dive into the challenges we face as women with our cycles, from all kinds of things, the true length of a cycle to the burnout that we experience from not honoring our cycles. And Alison and I will also share some ways in which we've learned to honor our cycles as, time has gone on and more understanding for ourselves has gone on. But I think we can jump in with the little juicy anecdote that I was sharing with you from last night, Alison, before we started recording. We were talking about a gentleman that I was having a conversation with, and he was so adamant that women's health has enough research, has enough studies. Women's health is very centered when we all know, in fact, that it is not. And I was kind of sharing with Alison that I feel as though because of social media and because of the centering of the conversations around women's reproductive health, it may be perceived that women's health is centered and that women are the center of medical studies, but that is in fact not true. If you've ever had any type of issue with your body or with your doctor, you've known that you're not always centered, you're not always considered or heard when it comes to actually one of my first experiences. I got my first job And I went to a doctor, as you set up all your appointments. You do the responsible thing when you get your insurance, right? So I thought I was doing. And my first OBGYN, I asked her specifically for hormonal birth control that wouldn't interfere with my cycles, because I wanted to consistently have cycles, because that's how I was able to monitor my health and make sure that I was, good. It helped me as like a gauge. And so I got my birth control from this lady and I wasn't having cycles. And I was going to the store like every so often because I was married at the time. So I'm having sex with my husband, right? So I was going to the store and I was like, why am I not having cycles? And I'm using all these pregnancy tests. And I'm like, okay, but I'm not pregnant. Like, I can't even tell you how many pregnancy tests I got. That lady owes me a lot of money. Wow. And I call her and I'm like, hey, I'm not having cycles. What is going on? She was like, oh, well, with that birth control, sometimes you're not going to have cycles. And the first thing I told her was like, the first thing I told you was, I want a cycle. So these are the types of things that come
even
up.
Even a female OBGYN is not respecting your own request.
Yes.
Yes. So I think the key thing here is number one, like the misperception you mentioned about social media. I think it's not that medical studies and all of this stuff is caught up. I think it's that women are fed up at being told that we're wrong about our bodies, that we should live outside of our cycle, that we should adapt to things that are not set up for femininity. Even the work week that we have, the 40-hour work week, is set up for men, not women. It's not set up to honor women's cycles. The hustle and bustle of today's society is not set up to work with women's cycles. It is a male-based everything. Yeah. So if there were studies done, then they would know women's hormonal cycle is on a 4-week cycle, and your body, your energy, everything is different each week of that cycle. And so expecting women to work in the same way men do is not realistic. Number one. Number two, medical studies were never done on women up until I think the 90s. Mm-hmm. And so we're way behind. Mm-hmm. In fact, we were told that when we had our periods, it was like psychosis, basically. Yeah. Like it was like we were crazy because we had our periods. It was like, actually, no. In the ancient world, it was actually a very honored thing that women would get to rest, that we would gather together. And so all of that has been forgotten in modern society, and women are expected to take a pill and keep going and argue with people about their own bodies, specifically men, which is like, okay, it's just unrealistic for a man to be even arguing with you about this. Does he have research? Has he ever had a period? Like,
no.
Go to the doctor because he's had cysts in his ovaries and doesn't know why. Has he ever had to put a tampon in his vagina?
Nope.
This is a big topic, and it's even women don't know, to be honest with you. That was one thing about starting this company that struck me the most, was how little women know about their bodies. Mm-hmm. Women that I've talked to do not know that tampons leave, for instance, microfibers behind in your vaginal canal, even if it's organic. And if it's not organic, then you're talking about microfibers with chemicals in it going directly into your bloodstream. Yeah. There's so many effects to that you're putting something in your body for 12 or 24 hours a day and not expecting there to be some effect of that. But there's naturally going to be. And that's not being studied either. That for probably the last 20, 30 years, women have been using period products, or more than 20, 30 years, have been using products that have chlorine, polyester. This is probably why we're seeing an increase of diseases with fibroids, cervical cancer, stuff like that. We've been putting, periods last a long time in our lives, more than 30 years, some people. Yeah. And every month you're putting chlorine and polyester into the most permeable skin of your body, which absorbs 10 times higher than your skin, your normal skin. Yeah. So, and that wasn't studied. It was just FDA approved. Let's go. Here you go, ladies. And even pads have the same effect. You're putting something on your skin for 24 hours a day, up to 5 days, 7 days a week for some women, for 30 years of your life, we're going to see negative effects.
We definitely are. We definitely are. And you know what? I've noticed, I think we shared this last time we connected, that, you know, a lot of this is experimentation. I think up until, I forget what generation that was, where Lysol was being recommended as a feminine hygiene product. And then they're like, oops.
50s or something?
Yeah, I think so. And then they're like, oops, this is not, you know, this is not safe for that, you know. Use it for cleaning your counters and disinfecting your homes now.
Imagine being told that Lysol should be sprayed on your vagina. Like, how were women surviving back then?
They were not. They were thugging it out for sure.
That had to hurt. That could not have been good.
Right? Well, you know, that's the time frame of like, if it burns, that means it's working. You know?
Yes, that's true. Oh my God. The pressure of women is very interesting.
Yeah.
You'd think it would like evolve over time, but I think in some ways it's becoming worse and worse. And this is going to be controversial to say, but even with things like Botox and stuff like that, like the long-term effects are not being studied because it's a new thing. And women now are just, so many women in society are doing all these cosmetic things without knowing, like maybe 20 years, 30 years from now, who knows?
Mm-hmm. That's so true. You know, so it's interesting. I think something that I kind of thought was interesting about what you were saying is like a lot of women don't even know like their own bodies or have even tracked or like paid attention to their bodies. And so I feel like some of us are afraid of our bodies when it comes to our menstrual cycles and, you know, feel like things are taboo. You want to talk a little bit about like some of, you know, what you experienced in your encounters with other women around this being fearful of their bodies and being taboo?
Yeah, I think we're taught, I think that's why the idea of the tampon is so popular in large cities where women work a lot. Because it hides your period, right? Put something inside you. You don't even have to see the blood come, like it doesn't come out. You can just forget it exists. I think that women in modern society, there's a lot of pressure to be more like men. So even women who are successful in their careers, they're competing against men, so they have to work harder. They have to do everything more just to be able to get to that level, right? So even with our cycles, so this is another thing, it's like we have to take a pill, we have to ignore it, we can't talk about it. If you're a woman who's career-driven, and you're working in a society that you're going to an office, you can't show up to a meeting and cancel all your meetings for 2 days because you got your period. No, you're going to take whatever you have to take to make that disappear and put on a smile and some makeup and just pretend that nothing's happening. And you're not going to tell your boss or your male colleague, oh, I'm on my period. Well, maybe now it's becoming more normalized, but it's still like pretty taboo to talk about, especially for career women. Because they don't want to be seen as they have a weakness, right? So I think there is that pressure that we put on ourselves instead of saying, hey, like I'm a woman, I'm healthy, I have a period, it's painful right now, I need to like take it easy this day of the week and track it for ourselves. A lot of women don't do that. They just push through the pain.
Yeah. What do you think about people who say things like because, you know, a lot of us, we've been taught, okay, here's some hormonal birth control. This is supposed to help maybe with your cycles or your cramps or making you feel better. What do you say to people who are like, well, can't you just regulate that naturally on your own?
Well, I think that's a sensitive topic because, again, we're talking about women being able to decide what's best for their bodies and to know what's best for their bodies. So I think that it's ultimately up to the person if they want to do that for themselves. I think for me, it's healthier for me to track it so I can plan things. I don't like playing with my hormones. Like I have endometriosis. It was suggested to me on multiple occasions to take hormonal birth control to regulate it. And I preferred to do alternative therapies. That's my personal preference because I know that there's also other implications with taking away from your hormones, your natural hormones. Some women do need to supplement when they have issues, I think that there's a deeper rooted thing that needs to be addressed, which is like we were talking about earlier, which is the food culture globally, but especially in the US.
Yeah.
The use of like byproducts and everything that we use, from our clothing to the cleaning products we use, all of that stuff is a major issue with why we're having hormonal issues. So it's a big issue, and there's a lot of big issues in the world. And so I think for women, we have to make the decision ourselves, but I think it is like there's something to being able to track it for yourself and find alternative therapies.
Okay. Oh yeah, we do need to address the bigger issue, which is the food. I mean, it's like, where do you even start on something like that? It's like a whole system overhaul, you know? And food is a big factor in every single like function of your body and your health. Okay. Pivoting a little bit. Can you talk a little bit about how you kind of stumbled upon like this technology for your menstrual pads, and like how that's really helped some of your customers?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I'm a cannabis user. I use CBD products and I love them. I'm one of those like CBD everything kind of people.
Yeah.
There's people who just like not really, but like everything, shampoo, serums, everything. I'm like, CBD, yes. I had surgery for endometriosis. I see an endometriosis specialist here in the Bay Area, and I did laparoscopic surgery to remove the endometriosis. And it was successful the second time around. But the first time around, I was recommended to use tinctures for the pain, because I don't really like taking like the Vicodin and the strong pills. They make me nauseous and they're addictive, and like, so it was my choice. I didn't really want to take them unless it was necessary, and it actually like helped me get through after post-op. Wow. Just mainly taking the tincture.
Wow.
So then kind of like around 2019, I've always had an entrepreneurial spirit, but I knew I wanted to do something in the women's wellness sector. I wasn't exactly sure what that was going to look like for me. But then I started kind of toying around with the idea of period wellness and kind of raising awareness around a lot of these topics we're talking about periods, about period products. And it just sort of like came to me in an aha moment, and I just like, I wanted to do period products, and I was like, what about CBD? And so it just kind of came together that way.
Wow. Yeah, that's really cool. What are some of the major like benefits behind it, like that you've experienced personally?
Yeah, I mean, CBD is anti-inflammatory, it's antibacterial, so it has a lot of benefits. It's calming. So, and I chose to go with a menstrual pad versus tampon because I'm a pad user. I don't like putting stuff inside my vagina that doesn't belong there for like many hours. So, and also I wanted it to be available for women who are struggling with maybe like post, when they have a baby and they're bleeding after that, or if they've had a miscarriage or a surgery like I did for endometriosis. So I wanted them to be able to use it that way as well. So it has benefits. The calming benefit is what is the main thing.
I love that. Wow. Okay. You've made me a believer. I might have to do some of my own research for myself.
I'll send you some.
Okay. Thank you. So I wanted to know, like, okay, it seems like you've used a lot of methods for honoring your cycle. What would you feel like is the biggest thing that you've shifted from being kind of burnt out and frustrated over your cycle to now where you are in a more empowered state? Like, what's the biggest way that you've begun to honor your cycle more?
I think a lot of my adult life, even my childhood, I railed against it as like this like monthly trauma. Like I hated it. Why do we have to go through this every month? It's like a lot of women feel that way. Like, this is such a terrible thing. And I think maybe in the last 5 to 6 years, I really like recognized, I think I was embracing my femininity, and I'm really empowering. There's a lot of like this feminine energy around me that I'm purposefully calling in. And I think it goes back to that, like honoring the natural cycle of myself and not trying to force myself out of it. I think that's where we get disconnected from our bodies.
Yeah.
Especially with our cycles that works with like it's in line with nature. I have been having my cycle on the full moon for a while.
Same.
And sometimes it's so intense, and I'm like, oh wow, yes, here we go. That's a confirmation that I'm very connected to the world around me. So I think embracing that ideology of like, I'm not disconnected from everything. Society wants me to feel disconnected, but I am actually connected. So embracing that connection within myself actually made me love my menstrual cycle because it's such a big part of my life.
Yeah, absolutely.
Women are born with their eggs. I don't know if you knew that, but we are born with our eggs. And we may even die with them. I don't know the facts on that, but I know that we're born with them and we have a certain supply. And that's when the cycle starts, when we start giving those eggs. So it's literally born in us.
Yeah.
So we have to embrace it.
We do, or we end up fighting it and struggling longer and longer.
We're miserable for 30 or more years of our lives. Yeah. One advice I have is to get yourself a period tracker and plan your life around when your cycle is going to be. Like I plan my vacations like, oh my God, I'm going to be on my period that week. I don't want to start my vacation on my period. If I'm going to be gone for a while, I'll end on my period. Exactly. So you can actually like work with it instead of working against it.
Yes. My favorite period app, it's not fully just a period app, but it's like also astrology, some of your own birth chart, some of like, tarot. It's like a combination of things. It's called Moon X. And so if you already have like your Apple one, you can import, it'll sync the two up if you want to, but you can also just use the Moon X. And I like it because it shows you when the moons are, where it's at in the sky, what sign it's in. And it shows you also along like where your cycle is falling as well. And so it gives you tips about like your health for that day or your mindset for that day or business or like money, anything like that. Cause it's a big picture. It's not just a separate part of, your life. So, I've really enjoyed that.
I'm going to try that. I use Eve, but I've used it for a while, and I think it's an older app, but I'll have to try that. That sounds really fun, actually.
Yeah, it is pretty fun. I really like it. But yeah, so I would say for me, honoring my cycle has been finding workplaces and work environments where I can actually, balance my energy and balance my time in the way that I see fit. Cause like, there's this 1 week I get in the month where I'm like uber productive and I'm like, okay, I can get everything I need to get done now. And then I can like meander and slowly work on other things that I really, don't have necessarily full brain capacity to do all in, one go. So, finding workplaces that honor my time, around PTO, around time management, that has been a game changer, and be able to work from the comfort of my home. We talked about this last time was, how did we even work physically in person in the office with other humans before the pandemic? Because like now I definitely feel it. I'm like, okay, this is harder and it's changed from what it was before. And so I need far more recovery time than I did in years past, Yeah.
I think the pandemic taught us all autonomy. And it's hard to go back when you have control over your schedule. It's hard to go back to someone else controlling your schedule. Yeah. And specifically women, because you're allowed to be in your comfort zone when you need to be, because our bodies are unique. They go through these cycles, these rhythms, like you said. Like there's weeks that you're so productive, and the next week you might be drained because you're getting ready to start your period, or you've started your period, or you're ovulating. And this actually affects your entire month, whatever phase of your cycle you are in.
Yes. So what is one, because I'm all for giving practical tools, what is like a comeback, that you could give the girlies who are listening for someone who is trying to challenge them about their cycle, their body, their health, of like, I know more than you do about this?
I think this is what I said earlier. Have you ever had a period? Have you ever put a tampon in your vagina? No, I don't think so. You haven't? Have you ever felt a cramp? No, you haven't. So I don't think you get to tell me what it's like to have a period or how I should behave during or after my period. If it's a man. If it's a woman, then you have a debate. Don't like your period? Well, hey.
Well,
maybe I'm not doing it right.
Sucks for you that you don't like your period. I don't know, because it's like you don't like a part of you.
Yeah, because I think a lot of women do push up against their cycle. But hey, it's your body's really rejuvenating. It's a time for rejuvenation and rest. So just get some R&R, ladies. You might feel better. When you're on your period, at least the first day, just chill. Just like take a bath if you want to, put a heating pad, watch TV, eat chocolate, do whatever you want that makes you happy that one day. Yes. And relax.
Yes. And not just physically, it's mentally too. Like, yes. It's mentally too. Oh, yeah. I love a good bath. I used to like get so like, I used to feel so inconvenienced by it, having to take a bath. Like I would do it because, you know, you're supposed to do it every now and then, but I would get so like frustrated. And now I'm like, oh my gosh, I need my bath time. Where is my bath time?
And I don't want to be insensitive to women who have pain, by the way, with their period, because I've had it. And honestly, the more that I've accepted that I have a period and worked with it instead of against it, the less pain I've had, to be honest with you. I told you this story before, but I'm going to tell it again. I have a girlfriend who she's in her late 40s now, but I remember like this was years ago. I have endometriosis, so we kind of like would bond over some like period topics. And she was telling me that she was on her way to work in her car and she had to pull over because her period cramps were so bad she was shaking and crying. Oh, and this goes back to that idea that if you are in that much pain, you should not be driving to work right now. Mm-hmm. But is the expectation that you can't call in to work, that you are in that much pain, that you can't stay home, rest? If she had stayed home that morning, she had decided in her head, I don't feel good. I'm not going to force myself to go to work. I'm going to stay home. I'm going to put a heating pad on. I'm going to drink tea. I'm going to relax. I'm going to take some ibuprofen or smoke some weed, whatever works for you. She might not have had to end up pulling over on the side of the road, shaking and crying because she was in so much pain, because she was honoring her body. Mm-hmm. But a lot of times, women don't have that choice.
Yeah, that's so true. That's so true. You know, it's interesting. We talked about kind of like our bodies being connected, right? And our cycles being connected to the earth, the things around us. I know everybody is not in a position to do this, but if, you know, where you can, you know, there was a week, and I'm trying to get back to this because it was really restorative, where I would like, so I have, like smart devices set up in the house so it controls everything. And so there would be a certain point in the night where everything would just kind of go down when the sun went down, and I would only have candles going. And like getting on that rhythm of like working with the natural, you know, daylight and sunset times was really helpful during that time. And the rest and the restoration was incredible during that time. And that particular cycle that I had was kind of like easy breezy, like smooth sailing, because my body was just kind of naturally getting to participate.
Working with the rhythms. That's beautiful, actually. I love that idea.
Yeah.
I think the more we tap into that, the easier our cycles might be. And this is a theory. I don't know. I'm not like studying it, but honestly, the more that I've embraced my natural rhythms, the less intense they've become.
Yes, absolutely.
That's not to say like sometimes I don't slip and have like a painful period, but from someone who was in so much pain that I would spend a lot of time like curled up in a ball in pain, I've gotten to a point where I rarely ever have pain with my period.
Wow. That's incredible. Okay, I'm striving to be like Alison when I grow up. Give me another year.
Try things. You know, that's another thing. Is like when you know it's coming, and you know that for most women, I think it's the first day is the worst. Sometimes the first 2 days.
Yeah.
Honor those days. Make sure those days you're resting. You're doing things that drinking teas that are good for your hormones, for your uterus specifically.
Yeah.
Like rose hip. I don't know exactly the teas that are good for dandelion tea, I think is one.
Yeah.
Do things that actually like are soothing for your, but drink warm soups. Like don't eat foods that are going to cause more inflammation, more pain. Don't wear a tampon. A lot of women don't know this. Tampons increase cramping. So if you get cramps on the first day and the second day, don't wear tampons on those days or cups, because putting something inside you will cause more pressure and cause more cramping. Use a pad or underwear or whatever, or free bleed. Some women are doing that now. I haven't tried that. I think using a pad is free bleeding. But I don't want to free, but some women are doing that. So like those days that you know your cramps are going to be bad, do things that decrease the likelihood of that. And I think you'll see that over time as you integrate things to honor those days, it gets less intense.
Yeah, free bleeding you guys can use. They have a period. I have period boxers, which I like from Thinx, and then I have period underwear from Thinx too. So I use kind of a combination between. I like the boxers the best, to be honest, because it feels more supportive and more coverage for my free bleed days. You know.
And honestly, it's not a one-stop. Like I use pads. I use my pads on the first day because I get really bad cramps the first couple days.
Yeah.
And then when I start getting lighter, so it's not as heavy, I switch to panties.
Oh, okay, yeah.
So I don't like doing it when it's heavy because it feels uncomfortable for me. But when it's light, I don't even notice it. And I use underwear. And I use tampons when I'm like swimming or something like that when I need it. But so you can mix, you know, like you do with your makeup and your hair products, you can mix and match during your cycle and also work with the flow. Yeah. When you're cramping, don't insert anything. When the cramps go away, do whatever you want.
Interesting. You know, I find that most of the women that I know use multiple forms of menstrual products like on each day. Like they might use a tampon and a pad, or a tampon, a pad, and a pair of period underwear. Like they're, you know, tripling up on their products, which is interesting too. You have any like tips for that? Huh?
That's a heavy bleeder. I would say if you bleed heavily, tampons are not your friend because you can't regulate it. With a pad, you can see, or even with underwear, you can feel it. If you're a heavy bleeder, I would skip tampons entirely because you can't, like with a pad, you can see, okay, it's time for me to change it. With a tampon, you're going to get a lot of leakage. So you're going to wear both, I guess, but...
Okay, see, that's helpful. That's a hot take. Some might say, "Well, you're a heavy bleeder, use a tampon." You know, so I've been told that a lot.
Oh, really? It's the opposite because you don't know when it's time to change it. You can't.
You can't.
And a lot of women get leakage with that.
Yeah, that makes sense to me. Okay, we're gonna transition into the vibes are vibing segment. So this is the portion of our show where we leave you with an affirmation card and a song from our Goddesshood playlist. Think of this as your card for the week. So today I pull from this deck every day. I'm pulling from Wisdom del Alma, 44 affirmation cards to activate your inner diosa. Diosa in Spanish is goddess. So obviously why we're using the deck. So I'm going to shuffle the cards, and then Alison, I'm going to ask you to pick a hand. Some people get creative. I've seen where they're like, can you pick the third card down from the left pile? So whatever you would like, we will do. So left or right?
Right.
Okay. Do you have any particular cards, or you just want the one on the top?
One on the bottom.
Okay. Oh, I love this one. I am the motherfucking prize. Okay. Yeah, okay. And on the back it says, I always have the power to claim what I want in my life. I no longer settle for breadcrumbs. Yes. That is a good one. It's one of my favorite ones. I love when that one comes up. And then today's song from the Goddesshood playlist is Pussy by Saweetie, and it stands for Powerful, Utopia, Supreme, Sacred, Yummy. I picked this song because, one, all three of us Allison and Sweetie and myself are Bay Area girlies. You guys see Allison's background.
Yes.
She's in the city in San Francisco. Two, this song just says to me that it's about damn time we celebrate our bodies as they should be celebrated. Allison, do you have any final offerings for our audience before we wrap up?
Just love yourself, ladies, and don't let anyone tell you anything about yourself.
Yes, I'm here for that. Thank you for tuning in. You've been listening to Goddesshood with Thea and Allison. Don't forget to share, subscribe, and head to the show notes for some goodies. And remember to live, love, laugh, and exist on frickin' purpose. Go live.
I wanna hear your voice. You should say all of the things you wanna say. You can be her right here today.